Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
All right. And we cannot wait to talk about some stuff tonight. And tonight is an NBA All-Star game. The festivities, I think, are going on right now. So, Kenny, who do you have tonight? LeBron's team or Kevin Durant's team?
I'm going to be a little, I guess I was about to say biased with the more Eastern team, but that would actually be Durant's team because they flip-flop. I'm going to go with Team LeBron, though. It seems like they have a better roster.
Okay.
But I don't know. I do like that they're doing the same format as last year.
Yeah.
Where, like, the last quarter is, like, the first to score 24 points. So I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, do you think they'll play hard this year? It seems like they stepped it up the last couple of years, especially last year. Do you think they'll continue with that?
I think this year might be a little bit of a letdown just because, like, I don't know. A lot of the stars seem to be a little about it, but that might also just be at the start of it, and they might be 100% in once they're in. Because, I mean, Giannis, once he was drafted by LeBron, he was like, all right, game over. We're winning this thing. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I really try not to sound like the old guy, with sports because I try to change, evolve. But, boy, do I miss – and it wasn't that long ago where the NBA All-Stars, they played really hard. To me, that was always the second best All-Star game behind baseball. I miss East versus West, but I think they're getting back to at least playing hard. Because we're going to see enough dunks, I want to see play some defense. Let's, and I showed you some of those older All-Star games that are on YouTube. I mean, when the Knicks and Celtics, they couldn't stand each other back then, but yet it was them on the court going against the West, they played so hard together. So we'll see. I think I'll tune in for a bit. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I probably will too, just to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah.
Still, to me, the best All-Star game I've watched, probably the 2003, 2001 with Stephon Marbury, like, leading the charge.
Yeah, him and Allen Iverson. Yeah, that was great how the East came back. They were playing so hard that night. And that wasn't that long ago, but I don't know. All right, so let's go around the horn with some current event stuff, and then we've got a couple of topics to get into, and we're going to do, since the NBA is right there at the midseason, we'll do some midseason awards. So anything cooking with your Yankees? I mean, what are you thinking so far? A weekend, the spring training is very, very early, and then we could jump into Aaron Boone in a second, but anything stand out with your Yankees?
I kind of lost you there.
Oh, okay. You got me now? So anything stand out for your Yankees so far?
I probably should knock on wood when I say this, but so far everyone's looked pretty healthy. I think one of the biggest standouts to me is Corey Kluber looked really good. And also Jameson Taillon has looked really good. I mean, not much of a sample size, but I think if those two are healthy, it could be a big step for them, because imagine a rotation in the playoffs where you have Cole, Kluber, Severino, who have all started game ones, and then Taillon or whoever else you have in there. So I still kind of say let's hope that continues throughout the spring. But that's probably my biggest takeaway early on. A lot of the other stuff, like I don't really care about numbers in spring training because there are some guys that they hit like 500 and then April turns around and they're back in the minors. So I don't really look at that.
Okay. So you're overall, I mean, just it's only a week old, but overall you're feeling pretty good, and especially those guys that haven't pitched in a long time. If they're at least looking decent in spring training, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So a lot of great messages to take away from Aaron Boone. I saw that he was back yesterday, I think. And I did not realize that in 2009, he had the same type of heart surgery that your mom had. And that was a very, very difficult, very dangerous, surgery. It still is, even with all the technology all these years later. She had it in 2007, he had it in 2009. So probably the procedures were pretty similar, I would say, being that close together. What does it say that he came back so quick this time around? Sounds like he just needed to be fit for a pacemaker, but had to be a scare for him, especially, so what it is a swollen aorta valve. So if the aorta gets to, I think, 5 centimeters, it could burst, and then it shows the signs of being a heart attack, but it actually isn't. It's just that now, you're just losing so much blood that most people, when that happens, don't make it. And mommy's was caught when it was about at 3, centimeters, thank goodness. And so she's been fine, ever since. But he started to get some lightheadedness, some dizziness. And I guess, look, it's 11 years past the time he had a surgery about. So that had to be a little bit of a scare for him. It sounds like the pacemaker is going to do the trick. What did the story speak to you? Because I felt like I didn't know about Aaron Boone's faith. I thought that was outstanding, and it's kind of, courage. I mean, he doesn't have to come back during spring training so fast, but he did. So what was your take on the whole story?
I think the first thing, because I have an article pulled up kind of where he was talking about it. Cleveland Clinic, I guess, was involved, which I guess it makes sense. They have it standing in Florida, and they're also I think the second highest, the most prestigious hospital or something like that. Mm-hmm. His heart rate was actually dropping to the 30s, 30 beats per minute.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's crazy.
So it seemed like something was definitely off, and especially when you've had heart issues before, they just kind of placed a pacemaker in, and it seems like he's been fine. Something that really stuck out to me is when he first kind of announced, because it kind of came out of nowhere, that he was taking an emergency medical leave of absence. He said in there that his faith is strong. Now, he didn't say what type of faith he is. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he's talking Christian, but I don't really know that for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think especially when it comes to, he said, his faith is strong, his spirit is high. I think he was confident that God was going to help him through that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if that means that he's a Christian by saying faith, but I'm going to go with that. That's what he's saying. And I think he really knew that God was looking out for him. And I think just in general, it kind of shows that even though it seemed like it could be a very scary medical procedure, anything with a heart is scary.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I think even something as routine as inserting a pacemaker, or even just the fact that he needed it to start with, there could be a lot of just trepidation with it. But I think it really shows that no matter what's going on in your life, whether it's medical issues, whether it's struggling on the field or on the court, God still has you. And it's just important to rely fully on God, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no doubt. And I think another part of the story is that I liked, and I think that sometimes as Christians or even as men, we don't do. He went and got help right away. As soon as he started feeling a little bit lightheaded, and maybe that was because of the history. He knew he had that serious operation, but I know God wants us to sometimes cry out for help, help from him first. But then I know it's him that sends us to the doctors, you know what I mean? And I know it's his hands that are on the doctor's hands. So thank God he went, because I didn't realize that. His heart rate dropped down to 30. No wonder he was feeling lightheaded. It's a wonder that he didn't pass out or have another heart attack at that pace. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So listen to this too. I found this. This is a quote. I guess this is a little far back. Someone had asked this question. I wanted to ask about the most important moment from your playing days. I'm not talking about Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS. As a member of the Houston Astros in 2009, you had open heart surgery at the age of 36. Did that change the way you look at the world or the way you lived your life? He responds saying, I don't think so. I was actually very much at ease going through it. I have a strong faith, so I believe it's in God's hands. Whatever the plan rolled out is the plan. So I wasn't overly anxious about it. It maybe sharpens a perspective a little bit and maybe sharpens appreciation for what you have and the people close to you. And I would say the coolest thing about that time is the amount of people that reached out to me. It was very humbling and very cool for me. That time was, in some way, I have an appreciation for time because I saw the warmth that came my way and I was appreciative of that. So it does look like he is a Christian. This article is back in 2018 when he first became manager of the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's kind of reflecting on that. So
yeah, that's amazing. That is really amazing. And that's great to hear. You know, Aaron Boone is a very interesting guy, and him and his brother Brett, and I'm sure you know this, they are the first third generation major league players. And then Bob Boone was a pretty good catcher on the Phillies teams in the late 70s and 80s. He was on their championship team, and he became a pretty good manager. You know, he had a little bit of success. And so it's interesting. And so hopefully he'll be fine. And throughout the season, he doesn't have any more issues. And it's good to hear that he's at peace. You know, same type of feeling that I know Mommy had as she was going in when I had major surgery. You know, just felt that peace that I knew God was, you know, watching over us, watching over me. So let's stick to something still current, and then we'll jump into the midseason NBA awards. This whole Micky Callaway story. So you sent me the article this week, and then I read that one you sent, and then I went and read the one on ESPN as well. You know, the first thing is that what is the role we're supposed to play if we see somebody doing wrong? I mean, just like if we take Christianity even out of that for a second, right? What should we do? I mean, because that's the underlying part of this story that starts to get kind of disturbed. And by the way, the Angels haven't let him go yet, right? I mean, he technically is like just on like a leave. And I'm not saying that they should, you know, they need to do their own, you know, investigation or whatever. But apparently Callaway had been doing this for years, and a lot of people knew about it. I mean, what were some of your first reactions when you read that?
I think one of the biggest, like, as far as shocking things to me was Terry Francona's reaction, kind of saying like, yeah, we didn't really understand what was like, we didn't really try to cover up anything. And then also like his son kind of throwing him under the bus saying, yeah, no, they knew that he was very inappropriate to women and didn't do anything about it. That to me kind of says a lot about really like just how degrading that it seems like some people in whether it's the Indians or the Mets really saw like their women, which is so opposite of what the Bible sees. Like the first people that saw the resurrected Jesus weren't his disciples, they were women. In the genealogies of Christ, like the first, you look at all of the different people, like Matthew names specifically 5 different women who were all a big part of making Jesus who he was. So like God obviously has like a very strong appreciation for women. And it just, that was one of the things that really hurt me. Like, wow, I can only imagine what that must be to feel like you're completely degraded. And like one of the people said, yeah, like that's just kind of how he is. And to me, that should never be an excuse for a certain behavior. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, that's the way he is. Like, that guy is just an alcoholic. Like, that's the way he is. He'll go off the deep end. Like, to me, that shows that there's a problem that no one's willing to address. And the most loving thing to do, even though it's the hardest thing to do, is to say something. kind of like the lady with the Mets GM that was GM for about like 8 days or whatever.
Yeah, Jared Porter. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's hard to do the right thing, and I'm not saying it's easy, but like, yeah, especially nowadays with sexual harassment, it's just never a good idea.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I love what you said about the Bible and women, and it's Women's History Month. So what also bothered me here was that there's several leaders that I really think are great leaders, right? In sports, Joe Torre is one, but Terry Francona is another. And the other part of the story that comes out that the apparently Callaway's having an affair with someone's, obviously someone's wife. Callaway's been single, I think. Oh no, he's married too. And apparently that guy calls the Indians and he speaks to someone, and that's not clear who he spoke to. And then the lawyer gets, on the phone and says, "Hey, I've discussed it with Francona. I've discussed it with Callaway. We're going to be taking measures." I guess maybe Francona didn't know that all of this had already come out. They go to ask him, and he said that lawyer never did speak to him, about the issue. So either Francona is not telling the truth or the lawyer isn't. And that's the part that you talked about, where Francona's son, then takes to Twitter instead of going, he takes to Twitter and says, "Hey, he essentially says the way they handled it was awful." And it puts Francona in such a bad spot for a guy who has an almost impeccable reputation, and again, benefit of the doubt, maybe it never got to him, but it's hard to believe that Callaway's actions were this egregious for this long. And, the Mets didn't know, the Indians didn't know, the Angels now say they didn't know. I mean, apparently, like you said earlier, all reporters knew, a lot of the female reporters especially knew, and apparently a lot of players knew, so it is hard to confront sometimes, but someone should have looked him in the eye a long time ago and said, "Listen, you want to stay here in baseball? You know what I mean? You need to cut this out. And you're not treating women with the respect that they deserve." Just a weird story.
Yeah. It also seemed kind of weird too, because like there were some female reporters that were like, "Yeah, I was told when I first would interview him that like I got to be careful. Like if he gives you some kind of like naked picture, like that's going to happen." Like asking reporters, like, "I'm going to give you information if we go and get drunk together," like just really bizarre stuff. And like a couple times I saw the quote said something along the lines of, "This is like the worst kept secret within these organizations."
Yeah.
And that part is like kind of, especially like it looks like, because honestly, he was not a good manager with the Mets. I think you of all people would probably say, yeah.
He didn't do it.
He wasn't good. But like, it seems like they also fired him just to kind of like, "Oh, well, he's a little too creepy for us, but we'll just kind of let him go for that reason." They should have never hired him to start with.
Yeah, and so that's where it comes back up, right? Because, it's Sandy Alderson, did he do his homework? And because apparently if this was like a open thing that people knew, how come Sandy didn't know? Sandy's been, great baseball guy for a long time. Again, Terry Francona, this surprised me. And why didn't anybody say anything? And then how did he get the job as manager in the first place? We saw zero leadership from Micky Callaway for the 2 years he was the manager of the Mets. It's puzzling, but it's all, we talk about culture a lot. You and I have talked about it a lot, and it's just got to be a culture shift there. I do like that this week, the first African-American female referee is named in the NFL. I think we're really close to having a female coach in the NBA. I really do. I think if Popovich steps aside when he does retire. I really believe that Becky Hammon will probably take over as coach there. And you see a lot of female referees in the NBA. Derek Jeter really took the step. He's got, a female general manager. So there's a lot of progress. I think that, sometimes when you hear stories like this, it seems like it takes a couple of steps back, and it probably does. But I think overall in sports, there's been a lot of progress. I think we still have a long way to go, just overall in general. But I think when it comes to sports, it's been a guy's thing for so long, that it really takes time to change that culture. But Callaway, his behavior does no favors, But you wonder how many guys out there are like him too, and nobody is saying anything, So
that's true.
Yeah. All right, let's have some fun. Enough of that. NBA midseason. I'm anxious to hear your awards. So what do you want to start with? You want to go Coach of the Year first, Rookie of the Year, and then your pick for MVP? Fire away.
All right. Yeah. So we'll go in that order. Coach of the Year, I don't think there's much debate on this. And I'm not going to be biased in saying this either, but it's got to be our good friend Tom Thibodeau. I'm going to see if I can pull this up from last year. So this year, the Knicks are 19 and 18, would be the 5th seed. Last year, they were 21 and 45, finished in 4th to last. So in other words, the Knicks are 2 wins away from already meeting last year's season total. And it's in a shorter season. So I don't know. Everything about the Knicks has changed, mainly because of Tom Thibodeau, whether you're talking overall defense, whether you're talking about even just the culture change. I saw that the Knicks are strongly considering giving Julius Randle a long-term extension. There's no way we'd be talking about that at the All-Star break last year.
No.
So Coach of the Year, gotta be Thibodeau. And Rookie of the Year, I think going into the season, it was definitely LaMelo Ball. And I think he's shown every single bit that it's going to be him. Let's see if I can pull up his numbers here. But he has been absolutely insane, especially the last month or so. And it's hard because I feel like a lot of the bias with him because of who his dad is kind of with people.
Yeah.
But he's shooting 45% from the field.
Wow.
He's averaging 15 points a game, 6 assists, and where's rebounds here? 6 rebounds. So 15, 6, and 6 is really good. I would love to say a guy like Emmanuel quickly will get a shot, but he's probably going to win it. Yeah. Right now, I would probably say that MVP is Joel Embiid. He seems like he's kind of taken the next step. You can make a good case for LeBron, but I think when you look at who the Sixers are, and especially this last month or so, the Lakers have kind of fallen off where LeBron really had to step up, and he could have shown that he was truly the MVP. But losing Anthony Davis, losing Dennis Schroeder has really hurt the Lakers overall. They've really struggled. And I'm not saying that anyone else could have done better, but it seems like Joel Embiid's more valuable this year. So that's who I'm going with right now.
All right. It's funny. I think we're in line across the board. I'll say that because I struggled with Coach of the Year. It's funny. I shouldn't, right? It should be hands down Thibodeau. But I looked at 3 plus Thibodeau. And Thibodeau, I think I got to give the edge to because I agree with you. I guess because we see it so up close, the culture of the Knicks has totally changed. Just the way they playing defense, but just the culture of kind of the organization has also changed, which was important. But I also looked at Phoenix, and I'm going to get to Phoenix in a little bit because I was surprised that they're 24-11. And so Monty Williams, who waited a while to get his shot, and I thought he was treated a little bit unfairly in New Orleans because I thought he did well there. And, you know, he lands here in Phoenix. And by the way, ex-Knick player, Monty Williams. I think he's doing a spectacular job there in Phoenix. And when we talk about MVP, I'm going to talk about Phoenix also in a second. So the other guy that I think is right there is Doc Rivers. And he's another coach that no matter where you place him, he just does an outstanding job. And I just think he's a great leader. You never had a good voice. But I think I think he's changed the culture of that team. That team just plays differently than they did the last 4 or 5 years. And it's definitely because of him. No knock on the other coach. I think that, you know, Brett Brown, I think he tried his best, I think, but I think it was a little over his head. I think he was good for the rebuilding, but to go to that next level, I think you need a championship caliber coach like Doc Rivers. I thought that was a brilliant hire. So definitely him. But Thibodeau just gets the edge to me because I don't think anybody expected what we're seeing from the Knicks. I mean, you think about that, 21 wins for the whole year last year, shortened season, of course, last year. And now, you know, they're 2 wins away from that. They just play differently. And just that whole culture, the way they root for each other, they play hard every single second of every game. Even they were, you know, getting blown out by San Antonio last week. They were still playing hard right at the end. He's definitely, in my opinion, coach of the year. Very, very close, though. I think it's going to be close. LaMelo, I haven't seen enough of him. I got to go with him, though. He's, you know, the team is doing a lot better. He's, you know, seems like he lived up to the hype. I know, you know, we never got to see him in college, but looks like, you know, he made the right move in going overseas. Got a lot of good experience there. The other brother we haven't heard from him since he got in trouble at UCLA and China or wherever they were at. But LaMelo seems to be,
he was there, like, I think he was on the practice squad for Detroit, but then got cut. So,
wow.
But yeah, he's not stiff in the NBA. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, let's give it to him. I think Emmanuel Quickley is going to be an exciting special player. I think he's like is going to be a player that's going to be a couple of notches above Nate Robinson. I thought Nate Robinson was such a unique player, but Nate Robinson kind of flamed out relatively quick. I think Emmanuel Quickley is going to be more long term, and I think his game is going to evolve a little bit more. But he's an exciting player, and I think he definitely, the Knicks did a great job drafting him. All right, let's have some banter on the MVP ones because I want to give you a few others that. So I'll say this at the beginning. I'm with you on Joel Embiid. He's my MVP, and if you look at the Sixers being 24-12, so a great record there. He's averaging 30 points a game, 11.6 rebounds a game, and 3 assists. So say no more. He's definitely a different player. And again, I credit a lot of that to Doc Rivers. And he's just come into his own. He also is healthy, which you remember he had a lot of injury problems his first few years in the league. He's definitely fulfilling his potential. But here's the other 3 that I debated with. Donovan Mitchell with Utah. Now, his numbers aren't crazy. I think they're great. But he's averaging almost 25 points a game, 4.7 assists, 4.7 rebounds, 5.4 assists. Not crazy, but he's the clear leader of that team that's 27-9. And so now they've got some really good players, you know, on that team as well with Gobert, Mike Conley. I think that's a team to be reckoned with. They're obviously number 1 in the West, but he's the clear leader of that team. Not quite MVP, but I really thought about him. Don't laugh at the second guy that I thought about because we kind of killed him. But James Harden. I mean, I gotta say the guy has he stepped up. He's played hard. He's leading the league in minutes played, right? I think you mentioned that last week. So he's averaging 25 points a game, which is really important that he's not averaging 30 because he could average 35. He's done that before. But he's obviously playing a lot more team ball. The number that stood out for me, did you realize that he's averaging 11.4 assists a game? I mean, just spectacular.
Yeah.
And he's averaging 9 rebounds, which is unreal for a guard. And so he's clearly the point guard. He's clearly taking over as leadership, as the leader on that team. And I got to say, I love to see this. I was really down on him, and so were you. But I love to see when someone makes a turnaround. And listen, I still don't like the way he left Houston, but, players do it all the time these days. So, who am I to say anything? But he might at the end win the MVP. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how New Jersey does. New Jersey's 24-13. Not New Jersey, Brooklyn. I'm still calling them New Jersey. Brooklyn is 24-13, which I think is great. It's an excellent record. Okay. The one that I really debated with for Embiid is Chris Paul. And, sometimes that one person can really make a difference. And at his age, to be playing at the level that he's playing at, Phoenix is 24-11. I mean, they were just so bad a couple of years ago. I know they got a little bit better last year, but they're 24-11. He's averaging 16 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 9 assists a game. So it's amazing what Harden's doing. Harden has more assists per game than Chris Paul, which is amazing. But the leadership that he's shown on that team, they have a lot of good young players, specifically Devin Booker and their center, the guy they picked number 1 overall a few years ago, is coming into his own. But he clearly has brought that team together. And I believe Chris Paul is like 36, 37 years old. I think he might have came in the league same year as LeBron, maybe even a year before. For him to be playing at this level, and he's bounced around now the last few years, right? Houston, Oklahoma City just for 1 year, and now here in Phoenix. But the way he has that team playing is, see, the NBA doesn't do like baseball, though. They won't give like to a Barry Larkin or, Kirk Gibson years ago where the stats are just okay and they're the leader. They give him the MVP. They're going to clearly go with the best statistical performance, but I really debated in, hey, Chris Paul or Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's numbers are just off the chain. Forget it. Chris Paul's numbers are solid, very, very good. I imagine that's probably around what his career has been, but it's just what he's meant to that team to be 24-11 at the halfway mark. And who knows what they're going to do in the playoffs, because you got a guy like that who's been there, who's never gotten to the finals, though, but is obviously itching to do that. They're probably still one piece away, Phoenix, but they've got a good coach. They've got a couple of just outstanding young players. They've got him, so anyway, but I'm still giving it to Embiid. So we were on the same page with Embiid, Thibodeau, LaMelo. We're on the page with all three.
Yeah. I would also I wish we could just give it to Chris Paul, because looking at their numbers last year, 34-39. And that's also including that they went 8-0 in the bubble. So regular season, if you're going to take the bubble aside, that's 26
it's
wins,
25 wins.
And they're to easily exceed that.
Yeah. They won.
So, yeah. So I agree.
Yeah. We'll see. It's going to be a great second half, I think. I think, some of the teams that didn't play well, that you expect to play well, I think they will, like Boston. Boston got hot there towards the end, towards the All-Star break here. So I think they'll continue their momentum. I think the Lakers will, especially if they get Anthony Davis back. Clippers are right there, and you just never know who's going to make a trade. I'm sure there's guys available. Obviously, Andre Drummond is still out there, so he's probably the best player now with Blake Griffin off of the market that's available. You never know, the Knicks might make a deal. I was reading Victor Oladipo that they're pretty far down the road with that. And so it's going to be an exciting second half. March Madness. So is it next Sunday, right? Is the selection? Is it next Sunday? I think so. Because this is the week where they have all of the tournament, championship tournament, the conference tournament games, right? So,
yep, it is. It is definitely next week.
So
I see it right here.
So last question: Are you starting to get a little excited about college basketball because we talked about that a few weeks ago. I started to watch a few games this week. Are you starting to get a little pumped up about March Madness?
Yeah. Partially because like I also kind of see it as like, oh, my birthday's right there. But also like it kind of makes March feel a little bit more normal, where last year it didn't at all.
Yeah.
It would be really nice, like maybe not even watching like all the games. Like there would be times where I'd have like the whole hardcore split screen with also watching on TV. I don't have the time for that, but I think I will watch a few games here and there, especially like if I get those alerts that like, oh, this game is like really close under 5 minutes, upset alert, like stuff like that. I'll probably keep an eye on.
Yeah, I am gonna miss. Hey, let's take you now to Dayton. Let's take you now to LA. Where it's all over the country. Hey, let's take you now to Indianapolis. Let's take you down to the other side of Indianapolis. But it should be fun. Yeah. Listen, Baylor and Gonzaga seem by far to be the two best teams. But as is always, you just never know who's going to step up. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap up. So it's been fun and a lot of great things. Looking forward to a big second half of baseball. This is one of the best times of year. It was the worst time of year last year for sports fans when everything shut down. Now, hopefully, this will be the best time of year again. As for me, it always has been through my life. So, Kenny, why don't you take us home?
All right. Yeah, let's continue to march forward here with good sports and enjoy the All-Star game. So this is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.